Good evening, everybody. Welcome back in for another episode of Swiss Cheese Beats. My name is Daniel. This is episode 28, and this is the continuation of our extensive interview with Jim Casella. Jim was so very gracious enough to share some of his time with us during the TMEA conference down here in San Antonio. And if you have yet to check out part one, you can do so over on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/SwissCheeseBeats. Or you can also click over here and it'll take you straight to that video as well. As always, if you're new to the channel, please hit that red subscribe button down below. This interview is broken into 4 separate parts, so make sure you hit that bell as well to get notification as to when the next episode drops. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the second part of this exclusive Jim Casella interview. So, and then after you marched drum corps, did you immediately go into teaching?
I did. I started writing for the Vanguard cadets, and so that was 92 was my first year doing that. The guys who had been teaching the cadet corps had, I think they had taken another gig somewhere, and so they had known me through maybe teaching some of the local high schools in the Bay Area, and so they had recommended me to J.W. Custer, the cadet corps director at the time. And we talked a little bit, and I think he got a good vibe from me. So he hired me without any real, tangible experience. Yeah. So me and Murray he was still marching in 92, so Murray wasn't teaching with me at that point. But a bunch of the guys I had marched with, we started taking on the cadet corps and making that that was our new thing. And did that for 3 years, and then J.W. Custer got hired to be the Vanguard A Corps director in 96. And having that relationship with him through the cadet corps, he actually hired me to be the percussion director there in 96. So I was 26 when I got that Caption head gig at Vanguard.
That was the Lemire show, right?
Lemire, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was a good year.
Yeah, I think back to that, and it's like I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was definitely in over my head, but it was.
I think you
I'm also really thankful. I was so kind of just gung ho about it.
Sure.
I didn't really care. I just wanted to make my mark and
sure.
do a great job. And
yeah.
I was just so all committed to it. And
I think as people, especially if it's something you really want, even if you're in over your head, you put your head down and you commit to it because you're going to do everything you can to reach that bar.
Yeah.
Although the bar just never seems to stay steady. It always.
The goalpost is always moving.
Yeah.
But
always.
As long as you're smart and you're paying attention to what you're doing, I think you can learn a lot of lessons along the way. And you'll bang your head into the wall many times, make mistakes, and if you can learn from those, you'll get better, hopefully.
Man, that's a quick rise because that 98 line, that's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, it was a great line.
Yeah, that drum solo was just killer. It was just so good. And we have a good buddy who I remember I was a junior and he was a senior in high school, and he's like, hey man, do you know this? And he plays the snare solo. It's like, where did you learn that? And he's just like, I watched the VHS video.
Yeah, just keep rewinding it
right,
over and over.
Yeah, ruining the tape.
Back in the good old days.
And now nobody knows what tape is. Even on some of my social media, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna videotape it. I'm like, who videotapes anything anymore?
I know. I'm bummed that we didn't have as readily accessible tools to record all that stuff.
I know.
I mean, I have recordings here and there of some of that stuff, but
sure.
It'd be so cool to get really good high quality recordings of some of those lines, because it was really fun stuff.
And you had Brian Perez, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was his first year?
He marched Lone Star in 98, so I think it was 2000?
Maybe 2000 was his first year. Yeah, he marched through maybe 2004 or 2005.
Yeah. He's a good buddy.
I'm terrible with the years.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember getting his video, and it's like, oh my God, this kid has crazy hands. So it was a pretty easy choice to get him in there. Being in Santa Clara, at least in those days, this could be my own bias, but it always seemed like we were sort of the second tier choice because Blue Devils were so close down the street. And if you're marching with the Blue Devils, you got a good chance of winning, and really good, solid players always ending up there.
Right.
And so sometimes it felt like we were like the Bad News Bears to the Blue Devils down the street.
I gotcha.
And so to get a video of some kid with really clear, obvious talent from day one was exciting. It's like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about the drum corps thing, can you talk about
the characteristics that you guys would look for when people would come audition for the group. And I mean, obviously you want people that can play, but I think you want also people that are going to fit within the group, work well with others. So can you talk about some of those things that you saw?
Yeah, I think chemistry is probably one of the most important things with the members of a tight-knit line like that, and even a staff for that matter. But being able to take direction and being relaxed enough. It's, you know, auditioning can be a nerve-wracking experience. I definitely know that myself, because I'm a terrible auditioner. That's when eventually I think I learned to decide, or I decided not to like pursue the classical path because I was so terrible at auditions. So knowing that it's nerve-wracking, it's like trying to find a way to be relaxed enough that you can be yourself, and showing who you really are, and being humble enough to take directions, because I think sometimes we get so eager to impress that it kind of puts a wall up on a staff being able to see who you really are.
Yeah.
And you know, you're putting a lot on the line because it doesn't always work out, and
Sure.
you know that going in. So when you've worked so hard for something and you want it to work out, it's hard to be able to accept that. But knowing that knowing that you can fail, but you're still going to go for it anyways, somehow that can come out in the way you approach things that people can see through, and it's genuine. And I think the best lines are the lines that are guys who can get along, guys who take instruction, obviously playing well, being prepared, and
Sure.
you know, knowing all your stuff. And you know, I think that goes without saying. It's more about like not overthinking, and not trying to be somebody who you maybe who you aren't.
Yeah.
Because people see through that pretty easily.
I'm like you, because I remember my senior recital in college even, I was just like overflowing with nerves before I
Totally.
started my first piece, and it was just like, this is going to be awful. But as I've gotten older, I've read some things, and it talks a lot about, one of the recent books I read talks a lot about how you really have two selves, your physical self and then your conscious self.
Mm-hmm.
And so you put all that practice time in to make your physical self ready to go, and then before the audition, your self one that has nothing to do with it starts telling you all these things.
I know. If you could just turn that guy off
Yeah.
every so often, it would be so nice. But I guess the human mind doesn't really work that way.
Yeah. So you were with the Vanguard until, was it?
2004 was my last year.
And then you went to the Cavaliers, right? For a couple years?
I took a year off, and then 2006 I started up at Cavaliers, and 2009 was my last year doing that. Yeah.
And then you're just done with drum corps.
Yeah. I think by that time I was going through some pretty heavy personal stuff that I needed to just kind of like focus on that and try
Sure.
to get my feet back on the ground, and was also just maybe feeling a little bit of burnout from the drum corps thing and the competitive nature of it, and it was, by that time it was kind of time for a break.
Yeah. So when did you start Tapspace then?
Tapspace technically started in '98, just 20 years ago actually now.
Really?
I forget. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, like, yeah, this is our 20th year.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were doing that while you were still doing all the drum corps stuff.
Yeah, it was a hobby. Murray and I were roommates at the time when we were teaching Santa Clara, and you know, he had written all these cool things like Martian Mambo and Electric Wheelchair and like all the cool warm-ups that the Drumline was doing back then, and I was writing the book for the corps, and we would. This is the mid-late 90s, so email was a thing back then, but the internet was still kind of like young and turning into what it was going to become. So we get emails from people all the time saying, "Hey, could you send me the music to the opener, or can you send me the snare part to Martian Mambo?" And there was clearly a demand for that stuff. But
At the time, were you guys sending it off?
I don't know.
Could have gotten all that stuff for free?
Probably, straight from the source.
Right.
I think after a while, though, it became clear, like, we should just put this stuff in a book or something, and like, let's just see if we can sell it. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And we had actually worked at Apple for a couple years too.
I was going to ask you that. And you were working at the main campus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this second part of the Jim Casella interview. Once again, be sure to check out those links as mentioned in the video down below. And of course, if you have yet to do so, consider hitting that subscribe button to become a member of the community. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to catch part 3, and I will see you next time.